There you are, cooking old hag. Emily said that when she brought a cake while visiting, but my husband became upset at the action I took in response. What are you doing? Apologize to Emily. I can assure you I didn't do anything to deserve such fury, so I think it's time to clear things up with them. Did you look inside the cake? I am Barbara, a 72-year-old housewife, and I also work part-time outside making meals. Having loved cooking since I was young, influenced by my mother, I decided to attend a culinary school after graduating from high school. Upon graduation, I obtained my chef's license and have been working for a temp culinary company ever since. I've continued to make meals that I hope are both healthy and tasty in various places, like company cafeterias, hospitals, and nursing homes. Although I worked as a full-time staff member for many years, I am now a part-time employee due to my age. Yet, I'm still happy to be able to work while doing what I love, cooking. At home, despite doing the cooking and household chores, my husband hardly ever expresses gratitude. My husband, George, prefers not to cook, unable to even find drinks without calling for me. Hey, Barbara, get me some tea. Yes, I told you the tea leaves, pot, and cups are in this cabinet. I don't care, you should do it. Despite being incapable of doing anything around the house himself, his pride as a former executive of a top company is very high. And he worries about what would happen to me. We have a son and a daughter, and our son, Michael, got married 2 years ago. Michael was over 30, which is a common age for marriage, so when he introduced his partner, I was overjoyed. Ideally, he would have introduced her before getting married, but due to her wish to register the marriage on her birthday, it ended up being a post-factum announcement. Michael has always been responsible, and at my age, I have no intention of meddling in his relationships. On the promised day, we met her for the first time at our house. She was petite with expressive eyes, and the difference between her and Michael was stark. Emily, the woman Michael married, had lived at home until then, working as a professional since graduating from junior college. I was raised strictly and never allowed to live alone. I'm a beginner at household chores, but I'll do my best. With a high-pitched voice and an upward glance, Emily seemed like an idol straight out of a TV show. Right after she finished speaking, George's uncontrollable joy burst out. That earnestness is your greatest weapon. Just be yourself. George seemed to fall for her at first sight, charmed by her spirited and adorable demeanor. Her cuteness and earnestness, which I lack, must have been refreshing for George, but it gives me a bad feeling. For a while, we listened to stories about her student days, her life as a working adult, and how she and Michael met. But the atmosphere suddenly changed at one point. Barbara, what happened to your hand? I cut it a bit at work. Maybe because I was in a hurry. That looks painful. But what do you mean, in a hurry? I work part-time in the culinary field, and it happened while I was working. I'm at this age, so I moved from a full-time position to part-time. But I still work full hours just like before. When she learned that I work as a chef, her expression became indescribably subtle. Working part-time in the culinary field, does that mean you're like one of those ladies cooking in a cafeteria? A cafeteria lady, huh? Well, in my case, more like a veteran in the culinary field. As I laughed off the comment with a light joke, George started teasing me. This one, cooking at home and outside, must be crazy, right? A cooking hag, I tell you. He must have thought it was funny. Normally, Michael would chide George, but he was away in the bathroom, so no one was there to stop George's tirade. I was taken aback and at a loss for words, but what accelerated the situation was something I never expected from Emily. A cooking hag, exactly. Cooking nonstop both at the cafeteria and at home. I'm all for my beloved husband, so no worries there. Her reply left me speechless, and I couldn't find the words to respond. However, as if nothing had happened, she went back to chatting with Michael, who had returned from the bathroom. I was just hearing about you, Barbara. You're such a hard worker. I'll take a leaf out of your book and do my best too. As evening came and Michael and his wife left, my feelings remained clouded. Having my decades of prideful work ridiculed, and her facade of amiability in front of Michael, left me with an inescapable sense of unease. I thought we got along fairly well with our eldest son and his wife. We would give each other souvenirs from trips or deliver extra dishes we had made. Sometimes, for birthdays, we would even dine at a nice restaurant to celebrate. However, as we spent more time with them, I began to feel a growing uneasiness towards Emily. Emily and I are connected on social media, and her posts have been bothering me. In a post about a restaurant we went to for George's birthday, I was cropped out in an unnatural way. There were also times when she posted about alcohol and dishes I made, pretending as if she had made them herself. Looking forward to enjoying the homemade alcohol with my husband. Wonder if the pickles are ready? They must be delicious with all the love put into them. Emily is gaining followers as a diligent housewife, and despite her recent posts, they already receive a considerable number of comments. I stared at the screen filled with praises for Emily. No one seems to think she's falsely claiming others' work as her own. Isn't it embarrassing to blatantly lie about making something that isn't yours? Though I had these thoughts, it didn't directly harm me, so I figured we could continue to maintain a moderate relationship. However, I would soon realize that Emily was more dangerous than I had anticipated. I had an abnormal finding in one of my health checkup items and needed to be examined at a major hospital. After being examined, I was diagnosed with cancer and had to be hospitalized for tests and treatment. I'll be hospitalized for a while for cancer treatment. Please take care of the house. To just go off to the hospital and then say, "Take care of the house," is quite convenient, isn't it? Why would he say such a thing when his wife is sick and about to be hospitalized? However, angering George at this point would only cause trouble, so I swallowed my words. Don't say that. I'd be happy if you could visit me sometimes. Who would bother to come see your face? I don't know anything about house chores. Right, Michael might know more about these things than you. After discussing with Michael, he assured me he would visit me during his work breaks, which was a relief. Since there were still a few days until Michael's visit, I decided to gather the laundry and other things I wanted to ask him to bring. Then, I heard the sound of someone entering my hospital room. I heard from Michael. I was worried and came to visit you. Emily visited me with a white box from the cake shop in front of the station in her hand. Oh, Emily, it's bad of me to trouble you when you're busy. Thank you for visiting. Michael is coming next Sunday, but George is utterly uninvolved. I'm glad you came. Then, Emily smiled sweetly and placed the white box on the side table. Please get well soon. I bought the cake you said you liked, so please enjoy it. Thank you. Since you went to the trouble, let's eat it together. But Emily started to prepare to leave with a light wave of her hand. I have a little errand to run. Please enjoy it, Barbara. Oh, there are 2 cakes inside. Emily left the room after a brief conversation. Despite her occasional problematic remarks, it was nice of her to visit me with a gift. Just as I was thinking this, George entered the room, almost crossing paths with Emily. You came? Yes, just passing by. Emily was here, wasn't she? He sat down heavily on the chair beside me as we talked. Yes, Emily just visited. Michael will come in 2 or 3 days, but before that, she left this cake as a gift. She said there were 2. So would you like to eat one? Typical Emily, always so considerate. I'd like the cheesecake. At that moment, I felt a sense of unease and was certain my concern was justified. I snatched the box back and tossed it into the trash can at my feet, causing the box to crumple with a crunch. Hey, what are you doing? Emily went to the trouble of buying that cake. You're throwing away the cake she thoughtfully chose for you. You're the worst. Are you trying to bully your daughter-in-law now? I immediately questioned George. Did you look inside the cake? No, I haven't. What's that got to do with anything? He seemed not to understand what I was getting at. Don't talk about bullying. If you think it's bullying, then try the cake that isn't the cheesecake you mentioned. Right here, in front of me. I'm fine, I don't like whipped cream anyway. Who said anything about a whipped cream cake? George seems perplexed, as if he doesn't understand, but does he not realize what he's saying? All I said was that there were 2 cakes. Isn't it strange that you chose a cheesecake without even seeing what was inside? Well, I just thought it might be a cheesecake. It seems he still hasn't realized the important point, so I decided to enlighten him. Moreover, after I threw the cake in the trash, I only mentioned trying the one that wasn't a cheesecake. What did you say to that? I don't remember what I said. George is laughing while looking up, a clear sign he's trying to dodge the issue. You said you were fine without it because you don't like whipped cream. As if you already knew there was a cheesecake and a whipped cream cake inside. That's just nitpicking words, what you're doing is dirty. He's red-faced and trying to brush this off in a fit of anger, so I pressed on further. You haven't opened the box, and it's not damaged enough to see inside, yet you claim to know what's inside. It's obvious you already knew what was in it. Don't be ridiculous. I didn't see Emily buying the cake, so I definitely don't know anything. Say whatever you want. For now, try the one that's not the cheesecake. If there's nothing wrong, I'll apologize for accusing you of bullying our daughter-in-law. Hearing the word apology, George's eyes lit up, seeing a chance to turn the tables. But this isn't where it ends. If there's something wrong with the cake, I'll call Emily right away. I retrieved the cake box from the trash and found a cheesecake and a fruit cake loaded with whipped cream inside, just as George had said. It's a bit damaged but still good enough for a taste test. I placed the whipped cream-laden fruit cake on a paper plate and handed it to George with a disposable fork. George grimaced and muttered under his breath as soon as he tasted it. Ugh. Salty. Disgusting. That cake is salty, isn't it? I knew because... Now, as promised, call Emily here. Right now. And don't say anything strange when calling her. Or you'll have to answer to me. As promised, I had George call Emily to the hospital room. Reluctantly making the call, George's usual cheerful demeanor was nowhere to be found. His usual upbeat demeanor was nowhere to be seen, probably because his wife, who had seen through everything, was watching. It was like a minion reporting a failed mission to the boss. While I was thinking this, Emily soon entered the room. What's the matter? I rushed over here after getting a call from George. Did I forget something? I can be so scatterbrained, sorry. Emily probably doesn't realize that her plan has been exposed. I handed her the box with the cake I had just taken out of the trash. Right, you forgot something. This box is meant for me, right? Of course. You were talking about how exquisite the whipped cream cakes here are. You know I have taste disturbances from cancer treatment, right? Emily covered her mouth with her hand in surprise, as if hearing it for the first time. Was that the case? I had no idea. She still seems intent on playing dumb, so I decided to corner her. This whipped cream, George said it's salty. Did you know that strong salty flavors could interfere with treatment? Realizing the plan had failed, Emily glared at George with a fierce look. Blaming her co-conspirator wouldn't help, so Emily, perhaps trying to cover up, was clearly scrambling for an excuse. It's strange. Whipped cream being salty. That must be it, the bakery must have mixed up sugar and salt. I'll talk to them, so don't worry. You think not knowing about the taste disturbances and the cake being salty is going to cut it? It's not my fault I didn't know. If we keep blaming every mistake, we'll end up being disliked, right? I'm sorry. But I don't have the professional knowledge like you, so I'll be leaving now. As Emily was about to leave the room, I rushed to the door, locked it, and leaned against it to prevent her from leaving. It can't be helped is something the person who was wronged should say, not you. Are you going to talk to the bakery? After bringing a homemade cake in a bakery box, what are you going to say to them? So what, Mom never makes mistakes? Amazing, I respect that. Emily's tone was provocative, but engaging in a fight wouldn't solve anything. I picked up my tablet from the bed and opened a search engine. The search history showed cancer treatment interference foods, salt cancer progression, taste disturbances salt, and similar entries. For some reason, this tablet has a search history I don't remember making. Could it be a misunderstanding on your part, Barbara? But I haven't used this tablet recently. And when I checked the history, it looks like it was around the time you two came home for the New Year's. You wanted to use it to watch a live stream of your favorite idol, if I remember correctly. I didn't miss the twitching on Emily's face. Are you suggesting that I searched for cancer progression just because I borrowed it once? Please stop making baseless accusations. It's not an accusation, it's a fact. This icon here looks like your favorite idol. It seems you forgot to log out. Seeing the icon, Emily turned pale, and her hands started trembling. I knew you didn't like me, but there's a line you shouldn't cross, right? This is like poisoning, what you're doing is criminal. Emily, clearly infuriated at being accused of a crime, lashed out in anger. I did nothing wrong. It's because you've been unpleasant to me, right? I just wanted to show you that being able to cook doesn't make you superior. You should be grateful for that. I truly have no idea what she's talking about. I've hardly discussed my work or cooking with Emily. I've only brought homemade alcohol and dishes to them a handful of times. I never intended to boast, but if you felt uncomfortable with my stories, I apologize. However, that doesn't justify your actions. As I firmly stated this, Emily became hysterical in the hospital room. After all I've taught you, you still don't get it, you old hag. Is a woman who can cook really that great? Gloating just because you've won over some stomachs. George, who had been quietly standing to the side, unexpectedly chimed in. Since calling Emily into the hospital room, George had been as inconspicuous as air in a corner, but suddenly, he started to intrude into the conversation. That's right. A woman's worth is her charm. But you've always been out working, never showing the determination to protect the home. Just because you have some cooking certificate doesn't make you any better. So, you're still here. You're really taking Emily's side, aren't you? You knew your duty was to ensure I finished the salt-laden cake. So what if that's true? It's none of your business. We were even discussing moving in with Emily and her family soon. You can live on your own. So you'd be better off living modestly in some room. It seems George and my eldest son and his wife had arranged to live together without me. This is the first I've heard of moving in together, and George's words make it clear he wants me out of the house as soon as possible. What have you been thinking all this time? Moving in together must have been Emily's idea, right? That's right, unlike you, she's kind and considerate. She felt sorry for me being alone at home because you never properly took care of the house. This is why I always said you should be able to manage the house on your own, but this is just reaping what you sow. This salt-laden cake, it's all about my medical insurance or something, isn't it? How did you come to that conclusion? You seem to have thoroughly read through the policies and even called the insurance company. I got a call from them. They told me quite a bit. And that's how I figured it out. Thinking that they plan to prolong my treatment to use the insurance money for living together with my eldest son and his wife is terrifying. It's lucky I found out through the search history and the call from the insurance company. But I shudder to think what would have happened if I hadn't noticed. Michael seemed completely unaware of George and Emily's malicious actions towards me. And he took their interference with my treatment very seriously, leading to his decision to divorce Emily. Emily was quite resistant to the idea of divorce. However, Michael's decision was firm. He couldn't overlook the gravity of their actions and the casual manner in which they were taken. So he didn't revoke the divorce. Thanks to the success of my cancer treatment, I was discharged from the hospital. Although I couldn't overexert myself, I managed to return to my part-time role as a cook. My company being a temp agency meant I worked in various locations, and I was assigned to a local hospital soon after returning. One of the special menu items for today's breakfast received a lot of comments, but is this name familiar? Despite the different last name, a food ticket bore a name I recognized. Afterwards, I found out that Emily was hospitalized, based on her age and characteristics. It seems her mental balance was disturbed following the divorce, leading to her hospitalization. Known for her complaints about food and lifestyle, she was causing quite a headache for the staff. When delivering meals, I encountered Emily causing a scene with the staff. So the rumors about the cooking hag were true. This woman is why I'm stuck here. Why not hospitalize her instead? She exclaimed. Your nonsense is as absurd as ever. Besides, I have work to do, I can't afford to entertain you, I responded. Emily's actions had made her quite unpopular among the staff, who treated her warily. Emily remains oblivious to the extent she is disliked due to her own actions, which is typical of her. She seems to be a weak person, unable to face the truth and always finding excuses. With the divorce of the eldest son and his wife, the plans for George to live with them have been cancelled. Given the circumstances, it must be awkward for George to continue living under the same roof as if nothing has changed. And he appears to be uncomfortable. It's been a relief to see my daughter, who has become more available due to her work, visit occasionally. However, the one change in George might be that he has started to learn a bit about household tasks. With occasional visits from my daughter, George is being thoroughly taught the basics of household chores, sandwiched between my daughter and me. Given the uncertainty of the future, I hoped he would become more self-sufficient. Teaching George household skills at this stage was challenging, but necessary for our future life together. When making soup, you can adjust the flavor with spices, but instant options are fine when you're short on time. With today's conveniences, it's a waste not to use them, I advised. I never knew so much effort went into making soup. I was wrong before, calling it taking shortcuts, George admitted. It's okay, you just didn't know. Learning now is what matters, I reassured him. George's realization of how much he had taken for granted and the difficulty of household chores was a wake-up call. Recently, he even began to express gratitude, a small but significant change. I hoped George and I could once again work together to build a life that is truly ours.